Bookish babes, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we are gonna go over what I read in February and March. I already went over what I did read in January in a January wrap-up, but I am going to start making these wrap-ups quarterly instead of monthly because it just overwhelms me to try and figure out how to read all the books I have on my TBR in 1 month. To start off with February's reads, the first book I read was Pretty Little Wife by Darby Kane. This is her debut novel. She wrote this in 2020, and I will say I truly enjoyed it. I gave it a 4.5 star, and I can't tell you much about it because if I gave you any information, then you would be able to know what's going on for most of the book, not all of it. It is very difficult to figure out who is actually doing the criminal acts in this book by the end of the story. At least it was for me, but it does start off a little bit slow, and that's why I didn't give it a 5 star and I just gave it a 4.5 instead. But if you want a good thriller, I did listen to this. It reminded me of Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter, just in the way it was written, and not necessarily all of the trigger warnings that Pretty Girls will ensue, but please read this. And if you really like audiobooks, I think the audiobook was wonderful. Again, I just thought it was a little slow in the beginning for the sole fact that it started off differently than any other thriller that I have read. There are other thrillers out there that I'm sure start off like this, but it's just the first one that I've read that started as it did. But please read this. For the second book in February, I read Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. This is my first 5-star thriller read for the year. And please, if you're going to read this, listen to it. That's what I did. It has a podcast element, and a book I would kind of compare it to would be an adult version of Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This has a woman named Lucy who so many years ago was assumed to have murdered her best friend Savannah, who they call Savvy, but there is not enough evidence to truly say that she did this. And just another little thing, which all this is on the back of the book, she lost her memory of that night completely. So for her to know if she did it or not, she doesn't even know whether she did. But there's a podcaster, Ben. He comes into her hometown trying to get more information about this. He runs a podcast, and just like A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, there's a lot of interviews that he has to try to get down to the root of the murder. He pries to get little bits of information here and there. And by the end of it, you finally figure out what actually happened to Savannah and Lucy the night that Savannah was murdered. Please read this. I was on hold for it for quite a few months. I put it on hold in October of 2024 because it's a very popular book right now, but I liked it so much that I would like to just buy it to have it on my shelf. The third book I read in February was Twisted Love by Anna Huang. This book is a romance, and I'm glad I got into a romance after reading a couple thrillers for the month, because I have been reading thriller after thriller after thriller, and I needed a change up. So I have picked this up twice before now and just put it on my soft DNF pile. I Really, really, really enjoyed this book. The only problem was the ending that I didn't like. I did give it 3.5 stars for that sole purpose, because the way that the third act breakup was resolved, I had a hard time with. But for the rest of the book, it was wonderful. I am into part of Twisted Games now. I do love her writing style. It's so easy to read. It is a little, I would say this would be an intro to dark romance, just like kind of another stepping stone to getting into dark romance. I wouldn't say it is dark, but I know it does have like content for 18 and older, because there are some harder topics in this book and her other ones. So please be warned of that. But please read this series, because Ava in this is just adorable. The friend group that they have in here is adorable, of all the girls that each are going to get their own book. And Alex Volkov, he is quite a man, to say the least. So please, please, please read Twisted Love. I really enjoyed this. 3.5 star, and I will be continuing the series. That concludes February's reads. I did not read that many books in February because I was very busy, but on to March. For the first book in March, you guys just saw my 8-hour readathon. I finished, finally, which was supposed to be a February read, I Hope This Finds You Well by Natalie Sue. I gave this book a solid 3 star. My 3 stars are not bad by any means, but it was just so hard for me to get into, and I think it's probably because I just wasn't in the mood, and I am definitely a mood reader. It takes a lot out of me to like stick to a complete schedule of specific books that I need to read, more of just like having a variety to pick from depending on my mood and the genre. But I will say this book had a really great representation of anxiety and a wonderful idea of how an office environment really works. I work in an accounting office, and I can see a little bit of how the characters and the coworkers interact, how that can be very comparable to any other office environment. But I will say, I mean, I don't have any diagnosed anxiety or anything like that, but this has great representation for the fact that the main character, even when she like spoke to anyone, she would come back and like reevaluate and overthink everything she said and how it could have affected their relationship between the person she was talking to, or how they might look at her differently because of something she might have said. So I did give this 3.5 star. Again, I would recommend it for anybody who wants to read something in that representation. It is more of a general fiction than a romance, but it was good overall, and I would recommend this to specific people in my life. For my second read in March, I finally picked up my over 600 page book on my shelf for my prompt. That is Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. I gave this book a 5 star. Is anybody surprised? Because I love the TV series and I just loved this so much. The only thing I wasn't a huge fan of was just the fact that I would have liked a little bit more description when they were having relations with each other, because it just could have made this a little bit better. But it still was a 5 star because I think it was written very, very well. And the story held up for the first season of the series. There were a couple extra things in there that were just a little bit different, but overall, this was identical to the first season of Outlander. Please, 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 if you like time travel, historical romance, anything of that nature, please read this. Claire and Jamie's relationship is just over the moon, amazing. They are always there for each other no matter what, and they will live together forever, no matter in life or death. I just know it. And just to show you or tell you how much I enjoy this series, my fiance and I, when we get married, are doing a hand fasting ceremony for our unity instead of a unity candle or unity sand or something like that. So I enjoyed this book and the way that that wedding ceremony went so well that we are implementing it into our own wedding. In my in-person book club, Lucky You by Carl Hiaasen was chosen for March's read, and that is the next book that I finished. I did listen to this book because I know for a fact there's just some books that I know if I'm gonna need to get through them, I'm gonna have to listen to them instead of reading them, because either I don't have time. At work, I can listen to audiobooks and work at the same time, or they're just really difficult books for me to read in general, so it's difficult for me to get through them before the time I need to get through them for book club. So I listened to Lucky You, and this is the lowest rating I've ever given a book, because if it wasn't for book club, I would have DNF'd this book. It was so boring. It has to do with an African American woman who wins the lottery and two white supremacists who also win the lottery at the same time. There's two winning tickets. Each of them would get $14 million, but the white supremacists come in and screw things up for Jolene, who is the main character. There are so many points of views. It's hard to realize it's hard to understand who is speaking at the time and who is not. I've never read any of his books before, so I don't know what the writing style is supposed to be, but this takes place in 1997 as well, which reading it makes me realize that things haven't completely changed in this world. But I don't recommend it. I gave it a 1.5 star. I just can't get behind suggesting it to anybody. So I'm so glad that that book is over and I don't ever have to read it again. This next book is out of left field, to say the least. I have had this series on my bookshelf since I was very little, but I forgot my headphones one day at work, and some of the audiobooks that I listened to I didn't want to listen to on my computer, but I wanted to continue to listen to something, so I found something that was available on Libby, and that is Little House in the Big Woods, the part of the Little House on the Prairie series. And I am so glad that I listened to it. It was so cute. In the audiobook, there is an actual fiddle player in the background, and it says on the cover that who the audiobook narrator is, as well as who is the fiddler in it. And it was just so nostalgic because I remember my mom reading these before going to bed. This is one of them we obviously finished, and I would recommend it. I'm going to continue the series for sure. Another series that I started this year so far, but I will be continuing. For my next book in March, it would be the book that everybody is talking about right now or has just finished talking about, but that is Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. My Bookish Babes book club and I read this one together. I do have the one with the sprayed edges, but this book was a great book for the series. I don't think it's my number one of the series, but I enjoyed going all over the place in this book, it wasn't just a central location. And the ending really does set up for the next book, which we won't get that anytime soon. But if you love dragons, if you love emotion, if you love angst and tension and obstacles in the way, I would definitely read this series. I gave this a 4.5 star. There were just a couple things that were like lacking or hard for me to decipher in her writing for me to give this a full 5 star. But if you're reading the series, just read it. If you want to wait, maybe wait until the next book is about to come out or something. But this series was so much, like the first 3 books at least, was so much better than I thought it was going to be, because I was very hesitant to read any of them because of the hype of the books. If you're also hesitant, just go for it. They're so good. The first one is really easy to get into, especially if you're not a fantasy reader, but the whole series so far has been absolutely wonderful. The 6th Target is the next book that I read in March. This is the sixth book of The Women's Murder Club by James Patterson. I don't think I've explained this very well, but this series has to do with 4 women who are in a group. They're friends, and one is a cop, one is a lawyer, one is a journalist, and one is a medical examiner. And they all will sit around at a Mexican restaurant and just catch up, as well as solving the murders or helping each other solve the murders that happen in this whole series. This one made me start off crying, but that's just because I've become very close to all of the characters in this series. I am actually on the 7th book right now. The audiobooks are so good. The audiobook narrator, Maxine Pietro, however you say her last name, is so good at being the main character and changing her voice up for other characters in the story. And this one also gave you a sense of questions, because there was a trial in it that made somebody either seem criminally insane or not, like in reason of insanity, or if he knew what he was doing. And it kind of reminded me of, if you've seen Bones, the guy who pretty much stalked and tried to kill them in Bones over the course of a few seasons. That was so much smarter than they gave him credit for, even though he seemed very insane. I have a feeling that this guy is going to end up coming back into the series somewhere else. And another little side note, the main character, the cop, Lindsay, she also is in a relationship, and I just want to let you all know that I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. I think we need some more information before I get on board with that specific relationship. But I definitely think that everybody, especially women, should read this series, because I just love the camaraderie and the found family that comes from the women in here. It's just unmatched. I have 2 more books that I read in March to end off the wrap up here. And the first of the 2 is Satan's Affair by H.D. Carlton. This is the 0.5, like the novella for the cat and mouse duet, which is Haunting and Hunting Adeline. I will say I don't think you need to read this to go straight into the cat and mouse duet. However, it's a cute, like, It's not cute. It is a nice leeway into the series. At first, I didn't think it was gonna connect at all, even though it said it was part of the duet, but it does. This is about Sybil. She comes from a family that is in a cult. She has so much trauma, but she goes around the fair that she works at, that she ran away to, and finds people that she thinks are demons, and she feels as though she is making the world a better place by eliminating them from the world. I will be truly honest, this novella is not for everybody. This is probably the darkest thing I have started to read. I've read some dark romance, but this one is probably the darkest I've read so far, which I'm very excited to get into Haunting Adeline after this. But there's a lot of very, very, very questionable things in this. So if you are not sure, please, please, please look up trigger warnings, content warnings, whatever, because I don't think that everybody wants to read this book. But I gave it 4 stars, and I really do wish we got a little bit more of a story of Sybil's. And I think that there's a way that the novella could be turned into a book, or we could get more of a story, even if it's short stories or another novella on Sybil, because the way this ended, who knows? Who knows what could happen with her? And last but not least, I have one more book that I read in March, and that is Full Tilt by Emma Scott. This book was an automatic available now audiobook on Libby. I've heard about it, but I never knew the premise. I knew it was a sad book, but I really wanted to listen to it. I told myself that if I wasn't wanting to, I wasn't in the right mindset, I would not listen to it, but I really did want to. I think I would like to have this on my bookshelf now. I know it wasn't a 5-star. The only thing keeping it from a 5-star was that it was a little bit of insta-love, but when you listen to it or read it, it makes sense why it was insta-love, for the sole purpose that one person doesn't have as long as another person in the story. It is very sad. I got to the hour left of the audiobook mark, and I had to walk away. I had to give it some time because I did bawl my eyes out. This is a very, very sad book. So just know that going in, if you're not sure if you want to read it or not, and you're not somebody who likes to just pick up sad books to pick up sad books. But it was something that I would actually really enjoy seeing in a movie form. It's a beautiful love story, and when I read it, it really made me think that you should be grateful for what you have now and grateful for the people you have in your life, because you never know what tomorrow is going to bring, and you should live your life to the fullest. I did want to go through my books on my TBR for January, February, and March that I did not read, and this time they are going to go back on my bookshelves, and when I do my TBR for the quarter 2, I will be choosing all new books. I don't think I'm going to do the prompt jar this time. I'm going to try something new, but I wanted to go and show you the books that I still have left on my physical bookshelves now, because I did not read them in January, February, or March. To start off, It Happened One Summer, Mountains Made of Glass by Scarlett St. Clair, Book Lovers by Emily Henry, One by One by Frida McFadden, The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, The Inmate by Frida McFadden, Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister, The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager, The Only One Left by Riley Sager, Mia Sheridan's Archer's Voice, Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco, If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy, Hexed by Emily McIntyre, and The Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. I did get through 5 of the books I had on my TBR, but sometimes I'm just not in the mood for them. So this is just a good little thing to have to try to get through my books on my shelves, but I'm gonna start calling them hopefuls and not having to read them if I don't feel like I'm in the mood for them. If you have any other books that you read in the months of January, February, and March that you enjoyed and wanted to recommend to me, please put them in the comments. I would love to see your recommendations, as well as a crying face emoji and a heart emoji. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye!